Hey guys, good morning and welcome to another episode of Motorcyclist MC Commute. You guys know the deal. We're going to be riding to the motorcyclist office in Southern California on Honda's 2020 NC750X. So let's throw the helmet on and go for a ride.
Alright guys, here it is, Honda's 2020 NC750X. NC stands for New Concept. This was a new platform Honda introduced for the 2012 model year. It combines elements from the commuting and urban touring worlds and the adventure touring worlds. I really like the nose of this bike. The V-shaped nose with the LED headlights inset. I like how this bike has a balance between, masculine, more manly styling with that V-shaped nose and a more feminine silhouette here with these clean side panels. It's a neat looking bike. A lot of people dismiss this bike as, an appliance, but you can tell Honda put some thought into the styling of this thing. This motorcycle is outfitted with Honda's DCT dual clutch transmission. Honda's been making this DCT powertrain systems for 10 years now. 10 years of DCT. But enough talking about it. Let's hop on this thing and see what it's like to ride. Alright guys, good old-fashioned mechanical key here. Let's start her up here. Parking brake here for the DCT so we can't roll backwards. Disable it by pushing that button. There is no clutch lever, no gear shift lever, no gears to shift. Well, there are, but we'll get that into that in a second. To get this motorcycle into drive, you push this D button here. Now the motorcycle is in first gear, and away we go. Right away, hopping on this bike, it's just, this thing is so comfortable. It really is. The seat is nice and low. It's wide. The handlebar is got a real nice bend. I like how tall it is. There's a lot of upward rise here, which is really nice. The sweep is a little bit rearward, but not overkill by any means. And the foot pegs are not too high, not too low. Very natural, comfortable riding position. If you're someone who's gonna be racking up the miles around town, you're gonna like the ergos of this bike. Right now we're riding in the standard DCT shift map. If you want to experience a more sporty shift map, throw it in the S. Now we're in the sportier shift map. And what that does is it allows the transmission to hold onto gears a little bit longer, downshift a little bit earlier, basically affords less freewheeling effect. The sport mode automatically learns how you're using it and will adjust the shift pattern to suit based on how much throttle input you're giving it. So, real neat feature. DCT is nice because it just reduces the complexity of riding. A lot of riding purists will be like, oh, I have to shift gears and I have to work the clutch. That's not a motorcycle, that's a scooter. But I love DCT. I've always loved it. It just opens up a new world of riding where you have to, use a small amount of mental energy to work the shift lever, work the clutch lever. DCT just mitigates that, and you can focus more on the experience of riding, which I like. Riding here on this road, the suspension is very comfortable. Very comfortable. It does a great job of soaking up the bumps and the rough stuff. Got just around 5 inches of suspension travel fore and aft. This bike comes with a linkage. It's got Honda's Pro Link. That's what they call their rear suspension linkage, and it gives a very favorable ride quality. Right now we're riding in 4th gear. The DCT transmission on this bike always likes to short shift the engine and get into the highest cog possible for the vehicle speed traveled. And what that does is that helps maximize fuel economy. On this motorcycle, we've measured almost ridiculous, 55 mpg, 60 mpgs. This thing gets really good fuel mileage. 3.7 gallon fuel tank fuels the motorcycle. The fuel tank's actually located underneath the rear seat. So there's a switch right here that you can switch with your key, and that opens the rear seat, which allows you to fill the 3.7 gallon fuel tank. You can also unlock the main storage compartment right here with that switch. This cool main storage compartment allows you to fit a full face helmet. I have a full face helmet in here right now, and it fits perfectly. There's no wiggle room, there's no room for it to bounce around. The compartment has a really nice weather seal, which is neat because that keeps it dry from, the elements if you're riding in the rain. Honda rates it as having I think a 5.8 gallon capacity. So you could literally put a 12 pack in here and some ice and be good to go. And I like that the compartment is relatively sealed, so even if you do carry ice or something wet in there, it won't harm the motorcycle's electronics. So if you're someone who's looking for a practical motorcycle, this NC750X is it. I mean, how many other bikes have a huge storage compartment, on them without having touring bags hanging off the side? Now, part of the reason why Honda was able to make such a large cargo compartment underneath the area where the fuel cell typically goes is the configuration of the engine. This is a 745cc parallel twin, single overhead cam, 8 valves. Now, what's neat about this engine is the way it's positioned. If you look at the cylinders are canted forward, very far forward, and that allowed Honda engineers to get everything very, very low and create that space to accommodate the storage compartment up front. All right, guys, we're just going to scoot around all this traffic. One of the joys of having a motorcycle in the state of California is being able to legally lane split like we're doing now. So we're going to take advantage of that nice law. Great, a turn. And this 500-pound NC750X handles well. 500 pounds, the full tank of gas in DCT configuration. This windscreen does a great job of shielding the rider from the elements. It's nice and broad, but it could be a little bit taller. I'm 6 foot tall, so I always want the tallest possible windscreen. So it could be a little bit taller, but it works decently. And away we go, guys. No cruise control. Heated grips are an option. Honda recently introduced cruise control on their Africa Twin. Hopefully that technology will make its way to this NC750X. Cruise control would be a very nice feature for a motorcycle like this, because you're going to be doing a lot of commuting and interstate touring, because that's what this motorcycle basically is designed for. I like this instrument panel. It's very clean, it's very simple. Yeah, it's a little bit short, it's a little bit compact, but it's right there in your field of vision. All the pertinent information is there. Fuel gauge, gear shift position, traction control mode, tachometer, speedometer. Very clean, very simple. Could be bigger, but it gets the job done. This motorcycle comes with Honda's selectable torque control. So HSTC, that's Honda's nomenclature for traction control. So compared to the other systems in the Honda motorcycle lineup, the system on this motorcycle is a little bit more basic. Most modern systems employ an IMU chip, which is the same chip that your iPhone or Samsung phone has, and it gives the vehicle positional awareness in terms of pitch, roll, and yaw. So this motorcycle omits that chip. Instead, it relies on a pair of wheel speed sensors. The wheel speed sensors feed information to the ECU. It also incorporates throttle or RPM gear position, and it allows the electronics to cut the engine power if the wheel slip threshold is met or exceeded. 2 levels plus off. To be fair, we have not ridden this motorcycle hard enough to even feel the traction control intervene, and honestly I don't even know why you'd even really need traction control on this bike, but it's awesome that Honda includes this feature standard. Of course, you can turn it off if you're riding in the dirt and you want to kick up some dust, do a couple quick slides, you can. Talked about the DC. Right now we're operating in fully automatic mode. There's a toggle switch here on the right switch gear. Tap that and now we're in manual mode. Manual mode allows us to work the 6-speed gearbox ourselves with this pair of buttons mounted on the left control switch, so we can choose gears ourselves. Now, the function of the DCT, we talked about Honda. Honda's been making these dual clutch transmissions for 10 years. It's unbelievable. 10 years of DCT. Now, this transmission, while it's awesome, it's not as fast or as responsive as the DCT system in the new Honda Goldwing or the 2020 CR1000L Africa Twin. That DCT is really high performance. So the DCT in this is a little bit more basic, it's a little more lazy, but it still gets the job done. And based on its application, it's totally acceptable. I like how narrow this bike is. It's very easy to maneuver through the dense traffic that we're jetting through today. Again, my only gripe would it be doesn't have cruise control. The mirrors do a great job of showing you what's going on behind you. Of course, this 745cc parallel twin is very, very smooth. There's basically no vibration. I mean, you can feel just a hint of vibration through the handlebar and the foot pegs, but it's so muted, it's almost that like it doesn't even have any. This engine employs an uneven 270 540 firing interval, and that uneven firing interval helps give the engine a little bit more of a rowdy feel. Of course, because it's a Honda, it's not going to be that rowdy. It's still going to be a little bit more mellow, but I like that the Honda engineers took the time to give it a little added oomph. A lot of passing power here. Even in sixth gear, the engine has a good spread of power to pull you through the road and help pass traffic. Let's try to get this light. We're not going to get it, guys, unfortunately. Brakes, we'll get to that in a second, but the brakes on this bike work very well. Ooh, we're still in auto manual mode. There, we got it now. But the brakes on this bike, this motorcycle only has a single disc brake up front with a twin piston caliper, but the front brake works very well. There's a decent amount of power, decent amount of feel. The rear brake's very adequately strong as well. So despite this thing not having dual front disc brakes, I wouldn't say it's lacking. Of course, ABS is standard. You can't disable ABS, it's always on, which is another nice safety feature. Normally we'd like to turn that ABS off for hijinks and more entertaining style riding, but considering the application of this bike, fixed ABS is totally acceptable. Now, we talked a little bit about the suspension and how comfy it is. This bike employs show us dual bending valve technology. This is mechanical suspension technology that Showa introduced a couple years ago. It's slowly trickling into its models, and what it does is it has a pair of valves. So a conventional fork has a single valve. This thing has a pair of valves, and what that does is it lets the fork respond more accurately to load, whether you're braking and it's during compression stroke, or when you release the brake and it's returning from compression into rebound. The fork responds more accurately and more quickly to road conditions. It's great technology. It just adds for better chassis pitch control when you're riding. So kudos to Honda for fitting that technology even on this NC750X. We're riding at 80 miles per hour right now, and we're pulling just over 4,000 RPM. We've averaged 48.1 miles per gallon. You can see it just climbing and climbing and climbing. Now that we're on the freeway, that's where we're really going to start seeing this fuel mileage climb and climb and climb. Alright guys, we're going to check in with you again here when we get off the freeway. See you in a bit. Alright guys, welcome back. Here we are on our freeway exit. Wanted to talk real quick about the throttle response on this bike. Obviously, with it having an automated transmission in the form of the DCT, when it's in drive mode, when you give it gas, the motorcycle is going. So it's very important to have a throttle response that is well calibrated, and this bike has it. The response to the twist grip, it's not, you can tell this isn't a ride-by-wire bike. It's just not nearly anywhere near as responsive as that kind of technology is, but I like the muted feel of the throttle. It makes it easy to understand the bike when you're twisting the throttle. It gives you a little bit of leeway in when you give the bike throttle. It's not going to get away from you. It's just a very mild mannered engine response, which just makes the motorcycle easy to ride. Yet it's not so mild to dull the senses of the bike. Alright guys, let's just try to do a wheelie real quick. We turn traction control off. Who knows if it'll do it? I'm sure it probably won't, but let's try. Yep, we can't do a wheelie, guys. So this bike does not do a wheelie. We know that for sure. Let's try backing her in. No backing her in. ABS. But we're not going to knock this bike for not being able to do these things, because it is still a neat bike, especially for commuting. Well, that was a highly efficient ride on the 2020 NC750X. And here we are, guys, to the motorcyclist office. Well, guys, there it is, Honda's 2020 NC750X. Comfortable, efficient, decent looking, very practical. I like this bike. Obviously, it is way more of a commuter bike than an adventure bike. Yes, you can take this thing off-road, but you can take any bike. I've ridden a Hayabusa off-road. So you can take this thing off-road, but it's limited. It's more of a commuting bike, more of a touring bike than an adventure bike. But still, if you're someone who wants to mix and match and ride a motorcycle on a variety of different surfaces, this thing would be a good option. All right, guys, let's do some quick Q&A. Straight to the top. Let's go right to the top. Ride the manual version, please. Nope, we're riding the DCT, $8,900. Does it have enough power for an experienced rider? Absolutely. This thing it cruises very well at high speeds. Not that we would know that, but it does. So yes, this engine does have enough power for a more experienced rider. Does it actually get 70 miles per gallon if you ride it like a commuter? If you ride this motorcycle at the speed limit at 45 miles per hour everywhere, yes, you're going to get upwards of 60 miles per gallon. If you ride this thing at high speeds, you're going to get less miles per gallon. So it's up to you. If you go very slowly, you will get 60 miles per gallon out of this thing. If you go a little faster, you're going to be in the high 40s, which still is really good for this motorcycle. It's not terrible looking. It isn't terrible looking. There are styling features that we discussed earlier that I really like. This thing is a big upgrade in the styling department compared to its predecessor. RPM at 70 miles per hour, just shy of 4,000 RPM. That's why this thing is so efficient, or part of the reason why. Which is top between V-Strom Versas and the NZ Mid-CC? It's been a while since I've ridden the Versas. It's been probably over a decade since I rode the Versas, so that thing's nice and decently comfortable. V-Strom's neat too. They're all really good bikes. You're splitting hairs at the end of the day. Really, whatever bike you can get the best value on is what you should go for. Or if you're brand loyal, you should gravitate toward that. Starter bike material, yes, this bike is absolutely starter bike material. Throttle response is nice and mellow. Seat height's low. DCT does away with the shift lever, clutch lever, makes it scooter-like. It offers scooter-like easiness. So yes, the only comment I have on this bike, why it wouldn't be beginner friendly, is it's heavy, 500 pounds. It definitely feels agile in motion, but still, 500-pound bike is a lot for someone who's new into riding. But still, if you are a little bit of a stronger human and you have decent mechanical aptitude, I would highly recommend this bike. Alright guys, that's a wrap from today's MC Commute on the NC750X. If you want to read more about this bike, surf on over to motorcyclistonline.com. You can read my review there. And thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like this video if you like it. Thumbs down it if you don't, and we'll see you next time.